Before this story begins, don't rush. Take one slow breath. If you still believe in a kind of love that doesn't announce itself, a love that stays quiet but steady, a love that survives absence, heartbreak, and time itself, then subscribe to this channel now. Because this is not a place for loud drama or rushed endings. Here, we tell stories that settle into your chest and stay there. Stories that feel like memories you didn't know you were carrying. Now listen carefully. The rain came down softly that afternoon. Not the violent kind that demands attention, but the steady, patient kind that wraps a city in gray and asks everyone to slow down. Portland looked like it was holding its breath. The streets glistened under the weight of rain clouds. Traffic lights blurred into watercolor streaks, and the air carried that damp stillness that only comes when the world seems tired of being loud. Laura Benson hadn't planned to be home so early. The office had closed without much warning. Emails sent, lights turned off, everyone quietly dismissed by the storm outside. And for the first time in weeks, Laura found herself with nothing to do but go home. All she wanted was warmth, a cup of tea, and silence. Not loneliness, but the comforting kind of quiet that feels earned. She parked the car, pulled her coat tighter, and walked to the front door with rain tapping gently against her shoulders. The lock clicked. The house welcomed her the way it always did. With stillness. Not emptiness. Not sadness. But the quiet patience of a home that had lived through laughter, arguments, late nights, and growing pains, and was now learning how to wait. Laura stepped inside, closing the door behind her. She slipped off her damp shoes, hung her coat, and exhaled without realizing how tightly she'd been holding herself together all day. Her son Ethan wasn't supposed to be home. He was 21 now, old enough to live more in the outside world than within these walls, but young enough to still leave traces of himself everywhere. That morning, he told her he'd be at the university library until late, buried under books and deadlines the way he always was. So Laura didn't expect anything different. And yet, as she walked down the hallway, something caught her attention. Ethan's bedroom door was open. That alone made her stop. She wasn't sure why. A faint scent of clean laundry drifted through the air, and just outside the doorway sat a half-filled basket of clothes, neatly placed, as if someone had meant to finish something and then gotten distracted by life. It was ordinary, unremarkable, and yet it pulled at her. Laura smiled, the kind of smile that appears before you even realize you're feeling something. For years, she had picked up after him without thinking. Shoes abandoned near the door. Mugs left beside his desk. Wrinkled shirts tossed wherever exhaustion won. Back then it irritated her. Now it comforted her. Because mess meant presence. And presence meant the house wasn't entirely alone yet. She bent down and picked up the basket. "I'll just help him out," she murmured to herself. It wasn't obligation. It was instinct. It was love doing what love always does, showing up quietly, without asking for recognition. As she began sorting through the clothes, memories rose without invitation. It felt impossible that this same room once held a small boy who needed reminders to zip his jacket, to finish his cereal, to stop staring out the window long enough to catch the school bus. Now he talked about internships, deadlines, and a future she could only imagine. Pride filled her chest. Then something softer followed. Something that ached. Her hands moved automatically. Socks. Jeans. T-shirts. And then, thud. Something small but solid slipped from the pile and hit the wooden floor. Laura frowned. Coins maybe. Keys. She bent down. Her fingers touched velvet. She froze. The box was small. Elegant. Deep blue. The kind of box you don't use for everyday things. The kind reserved for something that matters. Her heart skipped. Just once, but enough to be noticed. For a moment, her mind went completely blank. Then a thought surfaced. Quiet. Sharp. A girl. Ethan never talked much about his personal life. He carried his emotions carefully, tucked behind polite smiles and thoughtful silences. The idea that someone else might now hold space in his heart stirred something unexpected inside her. She had always known this day would come. Knowing didn't make it easier. Then she noticed the note. A folded sticky note pressed gently against the box. 2 words. Written in handwriting she knew better than her own. For Mom. Her breath caught. Slowly, almost reverently, Laura lifted the lid. Inside the box rested a silver locket. Not flashy, not loud, just quietly beautiful. The rain-filtered light slipping through the window brushed against its surface, making it glow softly, as if it carried warmth of its own. Laura stared at it, unsure how long she'd stopped breathing. Her fingers trembled as she lifted it from the velvet lining. It was cool to the touch, grounding her, reminding her this moment was real. She turned it over. And that's when the words found her. Engraved in tiny, careful letters were the words that cracked something open inside her. You were my first love. And you always will be. The room blurred. Not suddenly, but gently, the way memories do when they rise all at once. Time folded inward. She wasn't standing in Ethan's room anymore. She was remembering everything. The nights she sat awake long after he fell asleep, staring at the ceiling, wondering how she would make it through another day. The moment his father left, the door closing, the silence afterward louder than any argument. The promises she whispered into the dark when no one was watching. He will never feel unwanted. He will never feel like he was too much. I will stay. She remembered sewing costumes past midnight. Packing lunches with little notes she pretended didn't matter. Smiling through exhaustion so he would never learn how heavy life can feel. She remembered the tears she swallowed whole so her son wouldn't have to carry them. And now, this small, hidden box had seen her more clearly than she ever expected. A tear slipped down her cheek. Then another. Laura had survived loss. She had survived loneliness. She had survived raising a child on her own. But this undid her. She was still kneeling on the floor when she heard the front door unlock. The click echoed louder than it should have. Footsteps followed. Familiar. Slightly hurried. Wet shoes squeaked softly against the hardwood floor. Ethan was home. Laura wiped her face quickly, embarrassed by tears she hadn't planned to shed. She had always been strong. Always steady. But the locket was still in her hand. Cool, solid. Refusing to let her pretend nothing had happened. She stood just as Ethan appeared in the hallway. His hood was half down. His hair damp, curling at the edges the way it always did when rain caught him off guard. "Mom," he said, surprised. "You're home already?" She nodded. "The office closed." He shrugged off his jacket, completely unaware of the emotional storm that had just passed through the house. Laura hesitated. Then she lifted the velvet box. "I was doing your laundry," she said softly. Ethan froze. His eyes locked onto the box as if it had suddenly become dangerous. Shock crossed his face. Then guilt. Then something gentler. "You found it," he said quietly. "I didn't mean to," she rushed. "It fell out. I saw my name." He exhaled slowly, rubbing the back of his neck. "It was supposed to be a surprise," he admitted with a small, embarrassed smile. "For your birthday. Next week." Her chest tightened. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "I was going to take you to dinner," he said. "That Italian place by the river. I even made reservations." Laura looked at him, really looked. This grown man was the same little boy who once held her hand crossing the street. The same child who declared at 6 years old that he would marry her because she was the nicest girl in the world. "I don't deserve this," she said. "Yes, you do," Ethan replied immediately. "You deserve everything good." She felt it then. Something heavy beneath his words. "Ethan," she said gently. "What's wrong?" He looked away. "There's something I need to tell you." She waited. "This locket," he said, "wasn't just a gift. It was part of a project." A project. We had to design something that represented the person who taught us what love really means. Laura's breath caught. "Everyone chose someone different," he continued. "Partners. Friends. Teachers." He swallowed. "For me it was always you." The words settled slowly. "When Dad left," Ethan said quietly, "I didn't know what love was supposed to look like. But you stayed. You worked 2 jobs. You never complained. You never made me feel like I was a burden." Tears streamed freely now. "Love isn't words to me," he said. "It's staying." Laura covered her mouth. They stood in silence as rain tapped softly against the windows. Then Ethan spoke again. "I got accepted into a year-long internship in Toronto." The words landed heavier than she expected. When, she asked. Next month. The silence stretched. I'm proud of you, she said finally. Emotion flashed across his face. You're not upset? She smiled through tears. Love isn't holding someone back. It's letting them grow. He hugged her then, long, warm, full of years. When they pulled apart, Laura whispered, "Thank you for showing me your heart." He smiled softly. You just found it early. She laughed quietly. Maybe curiosity really did run in the family. And as the rain faded into mist outside, Laura understood something she never expected. She hadn't lost her son. She had raised a man who knew how to love.